She forced me onto the stage to humiliate me in front of 500 guests. I'm Madison Bennett, 29, and this is how I went from being mocked as just an admin to revealing I owned more of the company than the CEO herself. The woman who tried to destroy me that night never saw it coming. She thought my simple black dress and quiet demeanor meant I was weak. She thought her diamonds and designer gown made her untouchable. She was wrong. What happened in that ballroom changed the Sterling family forever and taught everyone there a lesson about judging people by their job titles. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It started 3 weeks before my wedding at the Sterling Industries annual charity gala. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom sparkled with the kind of wealth that made my stomach tight. 500 guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers that cost more than my annual salary. I smoothed my simple black sheath dress from Nordstrom Rack, $89 on clearance, and tried not to think about the sea of designer gowns surrounding me. Victoria Sterling swept past in a custom Oscar de la Renta that Fashion Weekly had featured just last month. $30,000 of midnight blue silk that moved like water. Her Hermes Birkin sat at the reserved family table, casual as a grocery bag. The Cartier diamonds at her throat caught the light like weapons. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "please welcome the CEO of Sterling Industries, Victoria Sterling." The applause thundered. Sterling Industries wasn't just successful, it was an empire. $2 billion in annual revenue, 10,000 employees across 3 continents, and Victoria, at 34, had been running it for 2 years. Harvard MBA, youngest female CEO in the Fortune 500, the golden child who could do no wrong. She took the microphone with practiced ease. "Welcome to our annual Hearts of Hope Gala. Tonight, we celebrate not just charitable giving, but the excellence that Sterling Industries represents." Excellence. The word hung in the air as her eyes found me in the crowd. That slight smirk played at her lips, the same one she'd worn 6 months ago when Daniel proposed to me. I was the anomaly in their perfect family portrait. The admin assistant from nowhere. The girl who answered phones and filed papers at one of Sterling's subsidiary companies. The mistake Daniel was making. Dom Perignon flowed like water. Waiters in white gloves circulated with caviar that cost more per ounce than gold. Every conversation around me involved millions, deals, acquisitions, expansions. I nursed my single glass of champagne and wondered, not for the first time, what I was doing here. But I knew exactly why I was here. Daniel had insisted I come. "You're going to be family," he'd said. "You belong there." Victoria had other ideas about where I belonged. Her diamonds caught the light again as she raised her champagne glass in a toast. I didn't know it yet, but those diamonds would soon look like cheap glass compared to what I was about to reveal. The memory of Daniel's proposal still felt surreal. 6 months ago in Central Park, he'd dropped to one knee with his grandmother's ring. But the joy lasted exactly 3 hours, until we told his family at Sunday dinner. "She's beneath us," Victoria had said, not even bothering to lower her voice as I stood in the hallway. "An admin assistant, Daniel? Really?" Tonight, watching the Sterling family hold court at their reserved table, that wound felt fresh. Robert Sterling, the patriarch and chairman, commanded respect with his silver hair and Tom Ford tuxedo. But it was Eleanor, his wife, who interested me most. She kept glancing my way with something I couldn't quite read. Concern? Warning? "Stay strong tonight," Eleanor had whispered when she hugged me earlier, her fingers pressing something into my palm. A tissue, as if she knew I'd need it. Daniel found me by the champagne table, his hand warm on my lower back. "You okay?" "Your sister keeps staring," I said quietly. "Ignore her." But his jaw tightened. Daniel was many things, kind, brilliant, dedicated, but standing up to Victoria wasn't one of them. As CFO, he was technically her equal. In reality, she'd been running his life since they were children. "Madison, dear," a board member's wife appeared, dripping in pearls. "Victoria was just telling us about your position Administrative work must be so steady, steady, code for boring, unimpressive, beneath notice. I enjoy it, I said simply. Well, someone has to do it. Her laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Though I suppose after the wedding, you won't need to work at all. The assumption stung. That I was marrying Daniel for money, that my job was just a placeholder until I could become a trophy wife. Eleanor appeared at my elbow. Margaret, have you seen the silent auction items? The Monet sketch is extraordinary. She steered the woman away, but not before giving my hand a squeeze. Your mother's being kind, I told Daniel. She likes you. He frowned at Victoria across the room. She sees what I see. But Victoria was already moving toward us, her smile sharp as winter. The crowd parted for her like she was royalty, and in this room, she essentially was. We need to talk, she said, but she wasn't looking at Daniel, she was looking at me. Actually, Victoria, I said, surprising myself with my steady voice. I need to powder my nose. Her perfect eyebrow arched, but I walked away before she could respond. In the marble bathroom that probably cost more to build than my parents' house, I pulled out my phone. The email from Whitman and Associates glowed on the screen. Ms. Bennett, confirming receipt of your message. We remain ready to execute as discussed. The documents your grandmother entrusted to us are legally binding and properly witnessed. My grandmother, Martha Bennett, the woman who raised me after my parents died, the woman everyone dismissed as a small-town nobody, the woman who'd been so much more than anyone knew. I thought about the mahogany box in my apartment, the one she'd left me with strict instructions. Open only when someone tries to make you small, Madison. And remember, your grandfather's name wasn't the only one on those incorporation papers in 1975. Sterling Industries. The empire everyone attributed solely to Richard Sterling, Robert's father. But there had been two signatures on those original documents. Two founders. One visible, one deliberately silent. Your grandmother was more than she seemed. The lawyer's words from 2 years ago echoed in my mind. She chose to remain a silent partner for her own reasons, but she made sure her legacy would protect you. I'd opened the box 3 days ago, after Victoria's latest campaign to convince Daniel I was wrong for him. Inside were documents that would change everything. Trust deeds, share certificates, board resolutions from decades ago, 35% of Sterling Industries, more than any individual family member held. The bathroom door opened. Eleanor Sterling walked in, checking each stall before turning to me. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, she said quietly. I met her once, 1995. She came to Richard's funeral. My breath caught. You knew? I suspected. The way Richard spoke about the early days, there was always someone else. A brilliant woman who helped build everything but wanted no credit. Eleanor reapplied her lipstick with steady hands. Victoria doesn't know. Neither does Robert. But I think Martha wanted it that way. Until the right moment. How do you know that moment is coming? Eleanor's reflection smiled sadly at mine. Because my daughter is about to do something unforgivable, and you're going to let her, aren't you? I said nothing, but we both knew the answer. The cocktail hour was when Victoria began her performance. She guided me through the crowd like a handler with a prize poodle, introducing me to every important person in the room with surgical precision. This is Madison, Daniel's friend. The pause before friend was deliberate. She does filing for us, at the Riverside subsidiary. The Riverside office, the smallest, least profitable branch of Sterling Industries, where they sent people they wanted to forget about. Filing? Thomas Chen, a major investor, looked confused. But surely with the wedding coming up, oh, Madison's very dedicated to her work. Victoria's smile could have cut glass. Not everyone can handle the pressures of executive leadership, can they, Madison? Some people are better suited to simpler tasks. I find all work has dignity, I said quietly. Victoria laughed, that tinkling sound that made my teeth ache. How quaint! This is why we need diversity, Thomas. Different perspectives. She turned to another group. Did you know Madison went to state? Such a practical education. The Harvard alumni in the circle shifted uncomfortably. One woman, dripping in Van Cleef and Arpels, actually stepped back as if mediocrity might be contagious. State has an excellent business program, Daniel interjected, finally finding his voice. Of course it does, darling. Victoria patted his arm like he was a child who'd said something adorably naive. Though I suppose Madison studied, what was it again? General administration? Business administration with a minor in accounting. My voice stayed level, though my nails dug into my palms. How, comprehensive. She guided us to another group. You know, the Worthington's daughter just finished her MBA at Wharton. Margaret, you should meet Daniel. Oh, but I suppose he's taken for now. The for now hung in the air like a threat. Board member Richard Blackwood frowned. Bennett. Why does that name sound familiar? Victoria waved dismissively. Common name, like Smith or Jones. But Blackwood's eyes lingered on me, something working behind them. He'd been with the company for 30 years, old enough to remember the early days, old enough to remember names that had been carefully erased from the official history. Excuse me, I said. I need some air. But Victoria's hand clamped on my wrist. Oh no, dear. The night's just beginning, and I have such special plans for you. Everyone gather round. Victoria clinked her champagne flute with a silver spoon. I want to discuss something important about the upcoming Sterling Bennett wedding. My stomach dropped. She'd used my last name deliberately, emphasizing it like a brand of shame. As you all know, Daniel is marrying outside our usual circle. Victoria's tone dripped with false concern. And while we're absolutely delighted, the word twisted like a knife. We want to ensure everything is appropriate. Victoria, Daniel warned. Oh, I'm just trying to help. She pressed a manicured hand to her chest. Madison's parents are both teachers, aren't they? Such noble work. But planning a Sterling wedding, well, the costs can be overwhelming for people who aren't accustomed to our standards. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. My face burned as 50 pairs of eyes turned to assess me. My clearance dress, my simple jewelry, my department store shoes. Your parents aren't even coming tonight, are they? Victoria continued. The flights from Ohio must be so expensive on a teacher's salary. They had commitments, I managed. They'd actually wanted to come, but I'd begged them not to. I couldn't bear to see them subjected to this. Of course they did. Victoria's sympathy was poisonous. Well, the family would be happy to help with expenses. We could arrange something modest, appropriate to your situation. That's enough. Eleanor's voice cut through the humiliation, but Robert placed a hand on his wife's arm. Victoria's just being practical, dear. Just being practical, as if destroying someone's dignity was a line item on a budget. Daniel's face had gone pale, but still he said nothing. His silence hurt worse than Victoria's words. How generous of you, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. But my family manages just fine. Do they? Victoria's eyes glittered. Because I heard the house has a second mortgage, and those student loans must be crushing. How much do you make, Madison? 35,000? 40? That must barely cover the minimums. One board member's wife whispered to another, Gold digger. They didn't even try to lower their voices. But Richard Blackwood was still staring at me. Bennett, he murmured again. Then his eyes widened slightly. Martha Bennett, oh my God. Victoria didn't hear him. She was too busy savoring my humiliation. But I heard, and I knew the moment was coming. Victoria wasn't finished. She never was until her target was thoroughly destroyed. You know, I've been thinking about family standards, she announced to the growing audience. Sterling Industries has a reputation to maintain. Our employees, our executives, and especially our family members represent something. Excellence. Achievement. Breeding. Breeding. Like we were show dogs. Some people, her gaze locked on mine, are meant to serve. Others are meant to lead. It's not cruel. It's just nature, the natural order of things. My hands shook, but I forced them still. One breath, two, three. The mahogany box waited in my apartment. The documents inside it waited too. Patience, my grandmother had always said. Let them show you who they are first. Madison understands this, don't you? Victoria's voice was silk over steel. She knows her place. That's why she's so good at filing, at following instructions, at staying in the background where she belongs. Victoria, please. Eleanor stood up, her face flushed. Mother, I'm just being honest. Isn't honesty a family value? Victoria's smile widened. Madison will make Daniel a wonderful assistant, someone to handle the little things while he focuses on what matters. That's not, Daniel started. What? Not true? Victoria rounded on her brother. Then tell me, what exactly does she bring to this family? What achievements? What connections? What value beyond her ability to answer phones? The room had gone deadly quiet. Even the waiters had stopped moving. 500 people watched as Victoria Sterling systematically destroyed the woman her brother loved. And Daniel? Daniel said nothing. Eleanor tried once more. This is neither the time nor— Sit down, Eleanor. Robert's command was quiet but firm. He was watching his daughter with something like pride, the golden child putting the outsider in her place. Some people, Victoria continued, her voice carrying across the ballroom, think they can climb above their station by marrying well, but breeding always tells, quality always shows. And Madison, she looked me up and down like I was livestock at auction. Well, we all know what Madison is. I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. The box waited at home. The truth waited. My grandmother's legacy waited. And Victoria Sterling had no idea what was coming. You're absolutely right, I said quietly. I do know my place. Victoria's smile was triumphant. Finally, some honesty. If only she knew. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone who thought they were better than you? The next part of this story shows exactly why patience and preparation beat arrogance every time. If you're finding value in this, please hit that subscribe button and share your own experience in the comments. Let's continue with what happened when Victoria decided to take things to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria's voice rang out over the PA system. She'd taken the stage again, microphone in hand. I have a very special presentation tonight. My blood turned to ice. As you know, Sterling Industries values every member of our corporate family, from our executives to our support staff. Her pause was deliberate. Tonight, I want you to meet someone very special, someone who represents the backbone of our company, the little people who keep things running while we make the big decisions. No, she wouldn't. Madison Bennett, would you please join me on stage? The spotlight found me instantly, blinding white and inescapable. 500 faces turned to stare. Cameras lifted, society photographers who covered these events for the Tribune, the Gazette, Town and Country. Madison, Victoria's voice was sweet poison. Don't be shy. This is your moment. Daniel grabbed my arm. You don't have to. Yes, she does. Victoria's tone sharpened. Unless she wants everyone to think she's too good for the people who actually work at Sterling Industries. The trap was perfect. Refuse, and I'd look arrogant, comply, and face whatever humiliation she'd planned. I walked to the stage on legs that felt like water. Each step echoed in the sudden silence. The stairs seemed endless. Victoria waited at the top, her smile bright as a shark's. Everyone, Madison Bennett? The applause was scattered, confused. Now, Madison, tell everyone what you do for Sterling Industries. The microphone appeared in my hand before I could refuse it. 500 people waited. The cameras recorded everything. I'm an administrative assistant, I said quietly. Louder, please. We all want to hear about your important work. I'm an administrative assistant at the Riverside branch. And what does that entail? Victoria's eyes glittered. Please, share with everyone your daily contributions to our billion-dollar empire. I answer phones, schedule meetings, file documents, manage correspondence. How fascinating! Victoria turned to the audience. Everyone, isn't it wonderful how even the smallest roles matter? Even the people who can't quite reach higher? Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others, the cruel ones, leaned forward, eager for blood. Tell us, Madison, what's your greatest professional achievement? I stayed silent. Come now, there must be something. A particularly well-organized filing system? A perfectly scheduled meeting? More laughter. Louder now. Actually, I said into the microphone, I'd say my greatest achievement is about to happen. Victoria's smile flickered. Oh? But I handed back the microphone and waited, because I knew what was coming next. She just didn't know it yet. Victoria took back the microphone, her moment of uncertainty passing. How ambitious! Madison thinks her greatest achievement is coming. Perhaps she means marrying my brother. The laughter was cruel now, open, mocking. Let's put things in perspective, shall we? Victoria moved to a presentation screen that descended behind us. This is what real achievement looks like. Her credentials appeared in gold letters: Harvard MBA, youngest Fortune 500 CEO, Forbes 30 under 30, Businesswoman of the Year. The list went on and on. By 34, I've built Sterling Industries into a global powerhouse, increased revenue by 40%, expanded into 12 new markets. She turned to me. And you, Madison? At 29, you've learned to use Microsoft Office? Victoria, that's enough, Daniel's voice carried from the audience. Is it? She rounded on him. Your fiancé should be your equal, Daniel. Your partner. Someone who can stand beside you at events like this without embarrassment. Can Madison discuss our Singapore expansion? Our tech acquisitions? Can she even read a balance sheet? I can actually... Oh, I'm sure you can read them. But can you understand them, create them, make million-dollar decisions based on them? Victoria's voice dripped condescension. There's no shame in being ordinary, Madison. Someone has to be. But my brother deserves extraordinary. She clicked to the next slide. It showed the Sterling family tree. This family built an empire, every generation stronger than the last until now. The implication was clear. I was the weak link, the dilution of their bloodline. I have a suggestion, Victoria announced. Madison, after the wedding, if there is a wedding, you should resign. Focus on supporting Daniel, running his household, having children. Leave the real work to people equipped for it. That's not your decision, I said quietly. No? Well, it will be when I restructure the Riverside branch next month. Did Daniel not mention? We're eliminating redundancies. Administrative positions are first to go. Automation is so much more efficient than... She gestured at me. This. The crowd had gone silent. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was cruelty. But I smiled. Actually smiled. Thank you, Victoria. She blinked. For what? For this opportunity. I looked out at the audience, at the board members, at the investors, at Eleanor, who had tears in her eyes, at Daniel, whose face was white with rage and shame. You're right. I am just an admin. I do filing. I answer phones. I make coffee. I paused. And I own 35% of Sterling Industries. Victoria laughed. That's absurd. But then the ballroom doors opened. But I wasn't looking at the doors yet. I let Victoria's laughter ring out, let her savor what she thought was my desperate lie. You're right about everything, I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the microphone. I am just an admin. I do answer phones and file papers. My dress cost $89. My parents are teachers. I have student loans. Everything you said is true. Victoria's smile widened. The crowd relaxed, thinking I was admitting defeat. I'm not from your world. I didn't go to Harvard. I don't have connections or breeding or whatever you call it. I looked directly at her. By your standards, I'm nobody. Finally, Victoria sighed dramatically. Some self-awareness. Daniel stood up in the audience. Madison, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I kept my eyes on Victoria. She's right, Daniel. I am ordinary. I work a regular job. I come from regular people. I'll never be extraordinary the way your sister defines it. Victoria actually looked surprised by my capitulation. Well, I'm glad you understand. Perhaps we can discuss a graceful exit from Daniel's life. We'd compensate you, of course, for your discretion. She was offering to pay me to disappear in front of 500 witnesses. That's generous, I said mildly. Eleanor stood abruptly, her chair scraping. This has gone far enough. Mother, sit down, Victoria commanded. Madison and I are having an honest conversation. Aren't we, Madison? Very honest. I handed her back the microphone. In fact, I think it's time for complete honesty. Something in my tone made her hesitate. What do you mean? I mean that you're also right about keeping things in the family, about bloodlines and legacy. I stepped back from the microphone, which is why what happens next is going to be so interesting. The ballroom doors were still opening. 3 figures in dark suits entered, walking with purpose toward the stage. What is this? Victoria demanded. Complete honesty, I repeated. You wanted to know what I bring to this family? What value I have beyond answering phones? The lead figure reached the stage stairs. Jonathan Whitman, senior partner at Whitman & Associates, one of the most powerful lawyers in the city. Ms. Sterling, he said formally. Ms. Bennett. Victoria looked between us, confusion replacing confidence. What's going on? You said some people are meant to serve and others to lead, I said quietly. You're right, but you got one thing wrong. What? Which one I am. The entire ballroom held its breath. And that's when I saw it. The first crack in Victoria Sterling's perfect facade. Fear. Victoria recovered quickly, her mask sliding back into place. I don't know what kind of stunt this is, but— No stunt, Whitman interrupted. I'm here at Ms. Bennett's request, but please continue with your presentation. Victoria's eyes narrowed. She still held the microphone, still commanded the stage, and she wasn't about to let some lawyer intimidate her. Fine, let's continue. She clicked to another slide. As I was saying, Sterling Industries needs to maintain standards, which is why, effective Monday, I'm implementing a new corporate policy. A document appeared on screen. The Sterling Excellence Initiative. All family members employed by the company must meet minimum executive standards. Harvard, Yale, Wharton, or equivalent education, proven leadership experience, and— she looked directly at me— appropriate social standing. Gasps rippled through the audience. This includes future family members, she continued. Anyone marrying into the Sterling family must demonstrate they can uphold our reputation. If they can't— she shrugged. They'll need to find employment elsewhere. You can't do that, Daniel protested from the floor. That's discrimination. It's excellence, Victoria cut him off. And as CEO, with 40% board support already secured, I can do exactly that. She turned back to me. So you see, Madison, even if you wanted to stay after marrying Daniel, which assumes the wedding happens, you couldn't. You don't meet the minimum requirements. Interesting, I said mildly. Mr. Whitman, are you getting this? Every word, Ms. Bennett, Victoria laughed. Are you planning to sue? With what money? And on what grounds? This is a private company. We can set whatever standards we choose. You're absolutely right, I agreed. A private company can set standards, but there's something you should know about private companies. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. Now. What are you doing? Victoria demanded. Texting my assistant. You don't have an— Actually, I do. You see, Victoria, you're right that I file papers, but you never asked which papers, or for whom. Whitman opened his briefcase, pulling out a leather portfolio embossed with gold letters. M. Bennett, trustee. That's impossible, Victoria breathed. Is it? I asked. You did all that research on my family, on my parents' mortgage, my student loans, but you never looked up my grandmother, did you? Martha Bennett. You never wondered why Richard Blackwood keeps staring at me, why your mother knew to give me tissues. Eleanor stood slowly. It's time, Victoria. Time for what? Victoria's voice cracked. Time for you to learn who really owns Sterling Industries. The three lawyers from Whitman and Associates positioned themselves at the foot of the stage like an honor guard. Jonathan Whitman himself, silver-haired and commanding, looked up at Victoria with the expression of a man who'd waited years for this moment. Ms. Sterling, he said formally, I'm here representing the Bennett Trust. The what? Victoria's knuckles went white around the microphone. Mr. Whitman, a voice called from the audience, Thomas Chen, the investor. The Whitman of Whitman and Associates? What brings you to a charity gala? I'm here for Ms. Bennett, Whitman replied simply. The murmur that went through the crowd was like wind through leaves. Whitman didn't take cases. He hadn't personally appeared in court in 5 years. His presence alone meant something monumentous was happening. This is ridiculous, Victoria stammered. Some small-town nobody can't afford. Pro bono, Whitman interrupted. My firm has represented the Bennett family for 40 years, ever since Martha Bennett walked into my father's office with incorporation papers and a vision. Richard Blackwood stood up suddenly. Martha Bennett. I knew I recognized the name. She was Richard Sterling's partner. That's impossible, Victoria shouted. My grandfather founded this company alone. No, Eleanor said quietly, her voice carrying in the sudden stillness. He didn't. Every head swiveled to the Sterling matriarch. Eleanor? Robert Sterling's face was shocked. What are you talking about? The truth, Eleanor replied. The truth Richard Sterling spent 30 years hiding. The truth I've suspected since I found those old incorporation documents in the attic. The truth Martha Bennett made sure would come to light when the time was right. You're lying, Victoria said desperately. Am I? Eleanor looked at her daughter with something like pity. Tell them, Mr. Whitman. Tell them about the woman who helped build this empire and chose to remain silent. Until now. Whitman smiled slightly. With pleasure. But first, I believe Ms. Bennett has a question for the board. All eyes turned to me. I was still on stage, still in my $89 dress, still the admin assistant Victoria had tried to destroy. But something had changed. The power in the room had shifted, like gravity suddenly pointing in a new direction. Just one question, I said calmly. Who actually founded Sterling Industries? The silence was deafening. Then Whitman opened his portfolio and pulled out a document that would change everything. Shall we look at the original incorporation papers from 1975? Before we continue, I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane building in my chest, I want the board to answer my question. Who founded Sterling Industries? Robert Sterling stood slowly, his face flushed. My father, Richard Sterling. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows half the story, I corrected. Mr. Blackwood, you were here in the early days. Tell us about 1975. The senior board member cleared his throat, his eyes fixed on me with growing understanding. Richard Sterling started with a small manufacturing facility, but there were rumors, a silent partner who provided capital and connections. Rumors, Victoria spat. Gossip. Facts, Whitman interjected. He held up the document. Original incorporation papers, 2 signatures, Richard Sterling and Martha Bennett, 50-50 partnership. The screens behind us flickered. My assistant, yes, I did have one, stationed in the AV booth, displayed the document for all 500 guests to see. 2 signatures, equal partners. That's fake! Victoria's voice pitched higher. It has to be. State records, Whitman continued calmly. Public filing. Anyone can verify this. Martha Bennett provided 60% of the initial capital. Her connections opened doors in Chicago, Detroit, New York. She was the strategic mind behind the expansion. Then where was she? Robert demanded. Why didn't anyone know? Eleanor laughed, but it was bitter. Because your father was a proud man, Robert. He couldn't stand the idea of being seen as equal to a woman, so Martha agreed to stay silent, to let him be the face while she worked in the shadows. That's insane, Victoria protested. That's the 1970s, Eleanor replied. A woman's contribution erased to protect a man's ego. But Martha was smart. She kept every document, every contract, every receipt. But even if this is true, Victoria rallied, trying to regain control. She's dead. Whatever she owned would have gone to her granddaughter, I finished, through an irrevocable trust established in 2008. The room erupted, board members shouting questions, investors demanding explanations, cameras flashing like strobe lights. Impossible! Victoria screamed over the chaos. Even if you inherited something, it would be diluted by now. The company's grown 1,000-fold. You're right, I agreed, which is why Martha was very specific about how her shares were structured. Mr. Whitman? He pulled out another document. Anti-dilution provisions, ratchet clauses. Every time Sterling Industries issued new shares, the Bennett Trust received proportional allocation to maintain its percentage. 35%, I said clearly. I own 35% of Sterling Industries. Victoria's face went white as bone. Whitman continued with the measured pace of a man dismantling a building brick by brick. The trust was structured brilliantly. Martha Bennett knew that one day her legacy would need protection. This is fraud! Victoria grabbed her phone, frantically typing. Our legal team will... Already been notified, Whitman said mildly. In fact, Sterling Industries' chief counsel, Patricia Wong, verified these documents herself 3 days ago. She's prepared to confirm their authenticity. As if on cue, Patricia Wong stood up from her table near the back. The documents are real, Ms. Sterling. I've spent 72 hours trying to find a flaw. There isn't one. Victoria's phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering on the stage. But here's the interesting part, Whitman continued. The trust had very specific activation conditions. It remained dormant as long as the Sterling family honored certain provisions. What provisions? Robert asked hoarsely. Respect, dignity, fair treatment of all employees regardless of their position. Whitman's eyes found Victoria. The trust activates fully when a Sterling family member in leadership publicly demeans, humiliates, or discriminates against the beneficiary. The ballroom was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. You triggered it yourself, Victoria, I said softly. Every insult, every public humiliation, every word about people knowing their place. My grandmother knew that someday, someone in your family would show their true nature. She made sure I'd be protected when it happened. But how would she know? Victoria started. That you'd go after me? I almost felt sorry for her. She didn't. But she knew privilege breeds contempt. That power corrupts. That someone, eventually, would try to make me feel small because of where I came from. And when they did, the trust would activate, Eleanor finished. My God, Martha, you brilliant, patient woman. There's more, Whitman announced. The activation isn't just about ownership. It triggers specific corporate governance provisions, including, he paused for effect, the right to call an immediate vote of no confidence in current leadership. Victoria staggered. Daniel caught her before she could fall. Every humiliation had been documented, I said, looking at the cameras that had captured everything. Every word you said tonight, the board members who witnessed it, the recordings, the hundreds of people who saw you try to destroy me for being just an admin. You planned this, Victoria whispered. You set me up. No, I replied. You did this to yourself. I would have been happy to stay in the background forever, but you couldn't let me be. You had to prove you were better. And now, Whitman said, we need to discuss the immediate consequences. What would you do if you discovered you had power over someone who'd been tormenting you? Sometimes the best revenge isn't using that power to hurt them, it's using it to teach them humility. If this resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by their job title. Now, let's see how the Sterling Empire crumbles in just 30 seconds. The leather portfolio in Whitman's hands seemed to glow under the stage lights as he pulled out document after document, each one notarized, witnessed, bulletproof. "I am Martha Bennett's granddaughter," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "And as of this moment, I am the largest individual shareholder of Sterling Industries." The screens behind us displayed the shareholding structure. The Sterling family's holdings divided among them: Victoria with 18%, Robert with 15%, Eleanor with 20%, Daniel with 12%. And there at the top, highlighted in gold, Bennett Trust, Madison Bennett, trustee, 35%. "This is fake!" Victoria's scream was raw, desperate. "It has to be fake!" "Ms. Wong," Whitman called out, "would you please confirm for everyone?" Patricia Wong, Sterling Industries chief counsel for 15 years, stood again. "I verified every document with the state records, the SEC filings, the IRS submissions. It's all legitimate. Ms. Bennett has been the largest shareholder for 2 years." "2 years?" Robert's voice cracked. "You've known for 2 years?" "The trust transferred on my 27th birthday," I explained. "But I had no reason to reveal it. I was happy working in the Riverside office, learning the company from the ground up, until tonight." "You manipulated us," Victoria accused. "You pursued Daniel." "I met Daniel at a coffee shop," I interrupted. "He spilled his latte on my laptop. I had no idea who he was for 3 weeks. By the time I found out, we were already falling in love. The trust had nothing to do with it." Daniel stepped forward. "Is that true? You never told me." "Because it didn't matter," I said, meeting his eyes. "I loved you as Daniel, not as a Sterling. Just like I hoped you loved me as Madison, not as an heiress." "This doesn't change anything," Victoria rallied desperately. "I'm still CEO. The board appointed me." "About that," Whitman smiled like a shark. "The trust documents include specific governance provisions. In the event of activation due to discrimination or harassment, the trustee has the right to call an immediate board vote. No notice period required." "You can't." "I can." I looked out at the board members scattered throughout the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I call for an immediate vote of no confidence in Victoria Sterling as CEO." The room exploded, board members rising from their seats, investors pulling out phones, the society photographers capturing every second of Victoria Sterling's world collapsing. "This is a coup!" Victoria shouted. "This is consequences," I replied. Eleanor stood slowly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I second the motion." The room went silent again. Mother had turned against daughter. "All board members present?" Whitman asked formally. "Please raise your hands." One by one, 12 hands rose. "Before we vote," I said, "I want everyone to understand how we got here." Victoria was shaking now, her perfect composure finally cracking. "You can't do this. You can't." "The trust activated on my 27th birthday," I continued calmly. "But it came with conditions. I had to work in the company for 2 years, any position, any level. My grandmother wanted me to understand the business from the ground up." "So you chose to be an admin?" Thomas Chen asked from the audience, his voice fascinated. "I chose to be where I could learn the most," I replied. "Do you know what admins see? Everything, every deal, every meeting, every decision. We file your contracts, we schedule your negotiations, we type your confidential memos." Several executives shifted uncomfortably. "For 2 years, I've watched how this company really works, who treats the staff with respect, who doesn't." My eyes found Victoria. "Who thinks people like me are worthless?" "This was entrapment," Victoria accused. "This was a test," Eleanor corrected quietly. "One you failed spectacularly." "You knew?" Robert turned on his wife. "You knew this whole time?" I suspected, Eleanor admitted. When Madison started dating Daniel, I did my own research, found old photos of Martha Bennett. The resemblance was unmistakable, but I said nothing because I wanted to see what would happen, whether my daughter would show grace or— She gestured at the stage. This. Mother, Victoria's voice broke. You brought this on yourself, Eleanor said firmly. Every snide comment, every public humiliation, every attempt to drive Madison away. Martha Bennett built this company alongside your grandfather. Her granddaughter had every right to be here, and you tried to destroy her because she worked as an admin. Richard Blackwood stood up. I remember Martha now. Brilliant woman. Richard Sterling might have had the vision, but Martha had the connections, the strategy. Half our early contracts came through her network. Then why hide? Someone called out. Because it was 1975, I answered. A woman's name on the partnership would have cost them contracts. So my grandmother stayed silent. But she kept every record, every proof of her contribution. And she made sure that one day her family would get what was owed. But why reveal it now? Daniel asked, his voice strained. Why tonight? Because your sister made it necessary, I replied. She announced her new policy, the one that would force me out of the company my grandmother helped build, the company I own more of than anyone else in this room. Whitman held up another document. The trust also specifies that any attempt to force the beneficiary out of the company triggers full activation of ownership rights, including the right to restructure leadership. Every trap you set for me, I told Victoria, you were actually setting for yourself. Let's talk about voting power, Whitman announced, pulling up the shareholder agreement on the screens. Ms. Bennett controls 35% directly. That's not enough for a majority, Victoria said desperately, grasping for any lifeline. You're right, I agreed, which is why I'm so grateful for your mother's support. Eleanor stood tall, her diamonds catching the light. My 20% votes with Madison. That's 55%. Mother, no! Victoria's plea echoed through the ballroom. You did this to yourself, Eleanor replied coldly. I watched you tonight. Watched you take pleasure in hurting someone whose only crime was loving your brother. Watched you use your power to humiliate someone you saw as beneath you. That's not the daughter I raised. But Daniel, Victoria turned to her brother. Your 12% goes with Madison too, Daniel said quietly. The gasp from the crowd was audible. Victoria stared at her brother in betrayal. You're choosing her over me? I'm choosing what's right, Daniel replied. You tried to destroy the woman I love because she didn't meet your standards, because she worked an honest job, because she came from teachers instead of titans. That's 67%, Whitman announced unnecessarily. Everyone could do the math. This is insane, Robert finally found his voice. My father built this company. With my grandmother, I interrupted. And she taught me something yours apparently didn't teach Victoria. She taught me that power isn't about making others feel small. It's about lifting them up. Pretty words, Victoria spat. But you're destroying me just the same. No, I corrected. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. Richard Blackwood cleared his throat. I believe we need to proceed with the vote. All in favor of removing Victoria Sterling as CEO? Eleanor's hand went up first, then mine, then Daniel's. One by one, other board members raised their hands. Even those who'd been Victoria's allies couldn't ignore what they'd witnessed tonight. 7 votes for removal, Blackwood counted. Those opposed? Only 2 hands rose, Victoria's own and Robert's. Motion carries, Blackwood announced. Victoria Sterling is removed as CEO of Sterling Industries, effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Victoria did something I'd never seen before. She collapsed. Not dramatically, not for show. Her legs simply gave out, and she sank to the stage floor, her designer gown pooling around her like water. My life's work, she whispered. Everything I built on the foundation my grandmother laid, I reminded her. The company you thought was yours alone was never just yours. It was ours. You just never bothered to ask. Security appeared at the edge of the stage, protocol for executive transitions, but I waved them off. Your mother taught me patience, I told Victoria. Too bad she couldn't teach you humility. The dominoes fell fast. Thomas Chen, the investor Victoria had been courting all evening, stood up. Whitman and Associates, I need immediate clarification on leadership stability, he announced. Our firm has 50 million pending, which will be withdrawn, his associate added, phone already to his ear. We invested in Victoria Sterling's vision. Without her, you might actually see returns, I said calmly. Mr. Chen, have you looked at the real numbers? Not the projections Victoria showed you, but the actual performance metrics? Chen frowned. What do you mean? The Riverside branch she called redundant? It's the only division showing consistent growth, 15% year over year, because we focus on sustainability and employee retention instead of slash and burn profit taking. Patricia Wong nodded. The numbers support that. I've been concerned about the aggressive expansion plans. Shut up! Victoria screamed from the floor. You work for me! I work for Sterling Industries, Wong corrected. And as of this moment, that's not you. More phones were ringing. The news was spreading beyond the ballroom at electronic speed. Someone murmured about stock futures, another about emergency trading. We need interim leadership immediately, Blackwood announced. I propose… Daniel Sterling, I interrupted. He's already CFO. He knows the numbers better than anyone. I can't, Daniel said immediately. Not after… He looked at his sister, still crumpled on the stage. I won't take advantage of this. Then who? Robert demanded. We can't leave the company rudderless. Madison should do it, Eleanor said clearly. She owns the largest stake. She understands the company from bottom to top. No, I said firmly. I don't want it. Everyone stared at me in shock. You don't want to be CEO? Chen asked incredulously. I want competent leadership that treats every employee with dignity, I replied. I propose we bring in an external candidate, someone with experience but fresh perspective. Meanwhile, I'll take a board position to represent the Bennett Trust's interests. That's unusual, Blackwood said slowly. My grandmother stayed in the shadows by choice, I explained. She had power, but used it wisely. I intend to do the same, too. Victoria looked up at me, mascara streaming down her face. You're not even taking the position? Then why? Because it was never about the position, I said. It was about stopping you from hurting people, about showing you that the little people you dismiss have value, have power, have worth. The CEO pin on Victoria's dress, a custom Cartier piece worth more than my annual salary, fell to the stage with a tiny clink. The sound echoed like thunder. The financial bloodbath was swift and merciless. Chen's firm wasn't the only one pulling out. Steinberg Capital is withdrawing, someone called from the back. Meridian Trust wants an emergency meeting, another voice added. The Tokyo Exchange opens in 3 hours, Patricia Wong announced, checking her phone. We need a statement ready or… Stock will crater, Daniel finished grimly. We could lose 30% by morning. Unless, I said quietly, we announce that the company is returning to its founding principles, the ones that built this empire in the first place. What principles? Robert asked bitterly. Apparently everything I knew about this company was a lie. Partnership, innovation, respect for every contributor. I pulled out my phone. I've drafted a statement. Patricia, can you review? Wong took my phone, her eyes widening as she read. This promises employee equity sharing, profit participation for all levels, board positions for worker representatives. Radical changes, I agreed, the kind my grandmother wanted but couldn't implement in her time. This will revolutionize corporate structure, Chen said slowly. If it works… It will work, I said confidently. Companies that value their employees outperform those that don't. Every study proves it. The board hasn't approved, Robert started. The board will approve, Eleanor cut him off, or I'll vote with Madison to replace every single member. The threat hung in the air. With our combined 55%, we could do exactly that. Victoria struggled to her feet, Daniel steadying her. You're destroying everything I built. I'm saving what you nearly destroyed, I corrected. Your aggressive expansion was unsustainable. Your treatment of employees was causing massive turnover. The Riverside branch you wanted to close? It has the highest employee satisfaction in the company. Because you lowered standards? Because I treated people with respect. I faced the crowd. Every person in this room has an assistant, a secretary, someone who handles the little things. How many of you know their names? Their birthdays? Their children's names? Uncomfortable silence. Madison knows every employee at Riverside, Daniel said suddenly. All 43. She brings birthday cakes, remembers anniversaries, covers shifts when someone's kid is sick. That's not leadership, Victoria protested weakly. That's exactly leadership, Eleanor replied. The kind this company needs. Whitman cleared his throat. Ms. Bennett, the trust documents specify you can appoint an interim CEO immediately. The board vote is really just confirmation. Then I appoint Daniel Sterling, I said. With one condition. Daniel looked at me warily. What condition? That Victoria remains with the company, in a position where she can learn what she failed to understand as CEO. What position? Victoria asked, her voice hollow. Administrative assistant, Riverside branch, reporting to me. Victoria's face contorted with rage. You planned this! Every moment, every word, you manipulated us all. No, I said quietly. You did this, with every insult, every public humiliation, every moment you tried to make me feel worthless. I was protecting my family, our legacy. You were protecting your ego. I stepped closer to her. I would have stayed silent forever, Victoria, would have kept my grandmother's secret, would have been happy just being Daniel's wife, working my admin job, living a quiet life. Liar. But you couldn't let me be. You had to prove I was beneath you, had to show everyone how superior you were. My voice stayed calm, though my heart was racing. You know what the irony is? If you'd just been kind, even just polite, none of this would have happened. You're destroying me because I hurt your feelings? Victoria's voice cracked. I'm holding you accountable because you hurt people. Not just me. Every employee you deemed unworthy. Every person you stepped on climbing your ladder. I gestured to the ballroom. Ask anyone here how you treat the waitstaff, the janitors, the security guards. Several servers along the walls nodded subtly. You made this about power, I continued. You turned it into a war, and you lost because you never understood that real power isn't about making others feel small. It's about lifting them up. Pretty speeches won't save this company, Victoria spat. When the markets open, they'll see a company returning to its founding values. A company that honors all its workers, not just the executives. I turned to the crowd. How many of you would invest in a company that guarantees employee profit sharing, that promotes from within, that values loyalty and dedication over pedigree? Hands began rising throughout the room. That's not how business works, Victoria protested. That's how business should work, Eleanor interjected. And it's how Sterling Industries will work from now on. Victoria turned to her mother desperately. You're choosing her over your own daughter? I'm choosing integrity over arrogance, Eleanor replied. Something I should have done years ago. The words hit Victoria like physical blows. She swayed, and for a moment, I thought she might collapse again. There's one more thing, I said. Victoria's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of hatred and fear. What more could you possibly take from me? Nothing, I replied. I'm going to give you something instead. The entire room leaned forward. A second chance. I don't want to be CEO, I repeated, addressing the room. I never wanted corporate power. I wanted corporate responsibility. Then what do you want? Blackwood asked. I want to establish the Martha Bennett Foundation for Employee Dignity, funded by my dividends, providing education, emergency assistance, and advancement opportunities for every Sterling Industries employee, from the C-suite to the cleaning crew. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, surprise, admiration, confusion. I'll remain on the board, I continued, and I'll keep my admin position at Riverside, part-time. You're keeping the admin job? Chen asked incredulously. It's where I learned the most valuable lessons of my career, where I understood how this company really runs. The executives make decisions, but the admins make things happen. Several administrative assistants in the crowd straightened, eyes bright with unshed tears. As for CEO, I propose we conduct a proper search. Bring in someone who understands that employees are assets, not expenses, someone who values every contribution. This is insane, Robert muttered. This is revolutionary, Chen countered, his tone thoughtful. If Sterling Industries successfully implements this model, we'll prove that treating people with dignity is profitable, I finished. Daniel stepped forward. Madison, I need to know. Was any of it real? Us? Every moment, I said, meeting his eyes. I fell in love with you before I knew your last name. The trust, the shares, none of that mattered. Until tonight, when your sister made it matter. I should have stopped her, he said quietly. Should have defended you. You tried, but she wouldn't listen. She never did. I looked at Victoria, who stood frozen on the stage. Power made her deaf to anything but praise. Eleanor approached the stage. Madison, what you're proposing. Martha would be proud. She always said power was a tool, I replied. It's not good or evil. It's what you do with it that matters. And you're using it to lift others up, Eleanor said, while my daughter used it to push them down. Victoria finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. I lost everything. No, I corrected. You lost the CEO position. You still have your shares, your wealth, your family, if you can repair those relationships. What you've lost is the ability to hurt people without consequences. That's everything, she said brokenly. And maybe for her, it was. The wedding is off, Daniel said quietly, his words cutting through the ballroom's chaos. My heart clenched, but I understood. I know. Not because I don't love you, he continued quickly, but because we need to figure out who we are now, without secrets, without lies. There were no lies, I said. Only truths I wasn't ready to share. And I need time to process that. He looked at his family, his mother standing tall, his father in shocked silence, his sister destroyed. We all do, Victoria laughed bitterly. At least something good came from tonight. Victoria, Eleanor warned. What? She destroyed our family. Destroyed me. And now she's destroyed Daniel's happiness too. You destroyed yourself, Eleanor said firmly. And as for our family, perhaps it needed to be broken before it could heal. Robert finally spoke. Eleanor, you're taking her side? This outsider who deceived us all? This outsider is Martha Bennett's granddaughter. She has more right to this company than any of us. Eleanor's voice was steel. And the only deception here was ours, pretending the Sterlings built this empire alone. I need to leave, Victoria said suddenly. She looked around the ballroom, at the board members who'd voted against her, the investors pulling their money, the staff watching her downfall. I can't be here. Running won't change anything, I said. The offer stands. Admin position at Riverside. Learn what you should have learned years ago, that every person has value. I'd rather die, she spat. No, Eleanor said sharply. You'll take the position. You'll learn humility. And maybe, just maybe, you'll become the leader you could have been. You can't force me. I can and I will, Eleanor cut her off. Your trust fund has conditions too, Victoria. Conditions I've overlooked until now. But if you want to maintain your lifestyle, you'll do as Madison suggests. The revelation that even Victoria's wealth came with strings attached sent another ripple through the crowd. 6 months, I proposed. Work as an admin for 6 months, learn what it's really like, then we'll discuss your future with the company. Victoria looked at me with pure hatred. You've won. Why twist the knife? Because I believe people can change, I replied. Even you. My grandmother believed in second chances. So do I. 3 months later, I stood in the same ballroom, now configured for a different event. The first Sterling Industries Employee Appreciation Gala. No more $5,000 tickets. Every employee was invited, from executives to janitorial staff. Madison, a familiar voice called. I turned to find Daniel approaching, looking healthier than he had in months. How's the counseling going? I asked. Good, hard, but good. He smiled softly, learning a lot about family dynamics, codependency, how Victoria's treatment of others was really about her own insecurity. And us? We're talking, that's something. He paused. You should know, Victoria's actually showing up to work. I know. She's filed every report on time, even stayed late to help when we were short-staffed. That must kill her. It's changing her, I corrected. Slowly, she actually said please to the coffee vendor yesterday. We both knew what a monumental shift that represented. Eleanor appeared, elegant as always but warmer somehow. The Foundation's education program already has 300 applicants. My grandmother would love that, I said. People getting chances they never had before. Speaking of chances, Eleanor said carefully, Victoria asked me to give you this. She handed me an envelope. Inside, Victoria's perfect handwriting. I hate you. But you were right. Watching you treat everyone with respect, seeing how they respond, it's effective. The Riverside branch's numbers are up 20%. Maybe there's something to this dignity approach. I still think you manipulated everything, but I'm starting to understand why. V. Not an apology, but a beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer called, please welcome Sterling Industries' new CEO, Dr. Patricia Yamamoto. Our external hire, a leader known for ethical business practices and employee-first policies, took the stage. Tonight, we celebrate not just our employees, she began, but a new chapter, one built on the foundation of partnership and respect that Martha Bennett and Richard Sterling originally envisioned. I smiled. My grandmother's name, spoken publicly in this room for the first time in decades. Never let anyone make you feel small for honest work, I murmured, remembering my grandmother's words. You never know who's really sitting across from you, or who's taking notes. Thank you for watching my story. If you've ever been underestimated or dismissed because of your job, remember, your worth isn't determined by your title, but by your character. Please subscribe if this resonated with you, and share your own experiences in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where someone who looked down on you realized they were wrong? I'd love to hear about it. And remember, sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one taking notes.